Soundcheck podcast is coming up. You can watch us on Facebook. Please continue to hold. The staff of the Soundcheck podcast reminds you to brush your teeth regularly and floss at least twice an hour. From newsounds.org, it's time for another live studio performance in our series, The Soundcheck Podcast. Streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, I'm John Schaefer. The London trio called The Comet Is Coming draws on jazz, psych rock, and electronic music to create a sound that was immediately arresting right out of the gate. Their debut album in 2016 was nominated for the prestigious Mercury Prize. Their latest album is called Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery, and it brings The Comet Is Coming to our New York studio to play some of it for us. Beginning with a piece called Blood of the Past, here is The Comet Is Coming. That is the London trio, The Comet Is Coming, live here in our New York studio with a song called Blood of the Past. You will find a version of that on their latest album called Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery. And let me introduce you to the members of The Comet Is Coming. King Shabaka on saxophone. Those of you who are regular listeners will recognize Shabaka Hutchings from the band Sons of Kemet, who are here just in the fall. Shabaka, it's good to have you back.
Thanks.
Yeah. On keyboards is Danalog. That is Dan Levers, and it probably goes without saying, Dan, that you are playing analog keyboards.
That's right.
The same analog keyboards you've had?
Man, stay analog. That's what I say. Use analog tape to record the band, analog synths to play in the band, everything analog. Old gear is the best.
All right.
Yeah.
And Betamax behind our drum kit. That is Max Hallett. Although in the UK you say Betamax, don't you?
Yeah. I actually say Betamax.
Okay.
But yeah, you say Betamax.
We say, it was VHS or Beta here in the States.
Oh, yeah. Call me Beta, please.
I love Darth Beta.
Yeah.
Now, Shabaka, the live versions of these songs are always going to be different from what's on the record, but especially the piece you just played.
Yeah.
On the album, it's kind of the centerpiece of the record, and it sports the kind of rap spoken word thing that the great Kate Tempest does.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? And what was is she sort of giving us the thesis of this record in what she's saying?
Well, there's a lot of things that she's talking about that are just really stand as the points of our time. Like she's articulating a lot of thoughts and sentiments that we have as a group and that we've discussed and feed into the general theme of the album. And, she's been a friend and a really good supporter for a really long time. So she talked about collaborating before, and this was a good opportunity for her to, in a way, sum up a lot of things that we try to express through the music, but in, the most succinct words.
And did you give her a finished piece, or did she give you her vocal track and then you wrote around it?
Well, in production, we ended up sending her an early-ish version of it. But after she put the lyric on, that's when we ended up adding the end section, which is so devastating. And that was in kind of response in a way to how poignant and how powerful what she had to say was.
Right. And I mean, she's talking about things like consumerism and, the mediated lives that we're living now and, division and stuff like that.
Well, do you know what? I actually wrote to her and expressed, I don't know, my energy within the group is I kind of more had this vision of like some kind of hope in there, there's some kind of ray of light, a chink of light that could break through this kind of industrialized denial, as she puts it, in the rap, and that through humanity gathering together in some kind of new, unified, strengthened community with a bit of hope. And I wrote that all to her, and then she kind of said, "Do you know what? I'm not going to write something as galvanizing as you had hoped. Here's what I've written." And it was great because it's like that's what everyone does in a group. Everyone brings their own thing, brings their own fire, their own energy, their own life force from wherever they're coming from. So she just totally tore the roof off, and
it's a wonderful moment, and it is both kind of bleak and poignant, and with this kind of undercurrent of, but we can still do something about this. Which, and Shabaka, you were talking about the ideas behind the album. I mean, the title is almost a direct response to the last album, Death of the Planet. Now we have, Trust the Life Force of the Deep Mystery. Are you playing the long game here? Is this like, do you see a narrative spreading over the arc of a couple of different releases?
Yeah.
Beta
I was
Max.
just going to say, we're
Max.
always aware of...
Beta, sorry.
Beta. Call me Beta, please.
Lord Beta.
Lord Beta. We're always aware of what our last statement was, and we talk about it as a statement, so we're clear. And and when we went in the studio, we're improvising, we're writing and collaborating, but we're also aware of like trying to make a statement. So we're always sort of trying to sum up everything that we've been studying, everything we've been reading.
All right, so sum this one up for us.
Oh yeah. Trust in the life force of the deep mystery. It's like there is hope there is a kind of, if you can just let go and stop sort of grappling, then you can see the mystery. And you don't understand the mystery, but you know the mystery and you can feel the mystery. And then when you feel the mystery, it can have profound effects on, so it's not about trying to understand everything, compartmentalize every idea. Sometimes you just need to kind of believe in something you can't really grasp.
Which is, I mean, obviously it's not a new idea.
Sure.
You think back to late Coltrane, Pharoah Sanders, Alice Coltrane, Sun Ra. I mean, there's a whole kind of stream of spiritual jazz, which I think is a term that's much more recent than that music. But, we've sort of retrospectively looked at those people and said, yeah, spiritual jazz. But that seems to be part of the DNA of this band.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about looking at the components of that statement. Like, what is the mystery? And, I think, it's something that should resonate with everyone who reads it in terms of forming your own appreciation or acknowledgement of the term. What does it mean to you on an individual level? For me, that mystery is the power of intuition. It's things that's been in various cultures under different names. Some people call it the subconscious. Some people call it the intuition. Some people call it ancestral knowledge. It comes in very many forms. But what that form, I think it goes back to what happens when you die. Is it that your energy gets taken into another phase, into another stage of being? And many cultures say that there's ways of tapping into energy that's in almost like the ether in the cosmos. And that energy has a life force. It has something that connects us to the past and that will connect us to the future. And if we can tap into that, almost like the life force of the great mystery, which is the thing that is not present in our reality as tangible, finite objects, we can achieve some kind of universal consciousness, some kind of elevation onto a different plane. But it takes the trust in it.
Yeah.
And the life force, I just want to add to that. You said the word DNA, and that like totally goes into my way of thinking about what the life force is like. When you look at the organic matter that we have on the planet, we have, as far as we know, reached like the pinnacle, the apex of what organic matter can achieve through its replication as DNA and the mutations. So we are connected back through like millions. Are you
saying we're the best we've got
so far? And that's the thing. That's our privilege, and also it would be such a great shame if we managed to, as far as we know in the universe, be the most advanced organic matter, but actually kind of screw it up. In amongst where there's poetry, there's love, there's beauty, there's like nature, and there's music, and there's art, and all these things. But it's like if that was to disappear, that's where the I don't agree with the insignificance of humanity, where people go, we're just a speck of dust floating in the middle of space. We're not insignificant, because as far as the universe is concerned, we are the apple of its eye, whereas as far as it's got so far, and we are aware of the universe, we're aware of ourselves, we're self-aware. So it would be a great shame if we wasted that opportunity. And part of the idea of being present of our own mortality and the fragility of life on the planet, the comet is coming, is like, be aware, that this day could be your last day. This is your chance to go and do what you need to do, to bring back consciousness, to bring back a conscience, and to, feel your humanity to the maximum.
Well, now Beta was talking about, we're improvising, we're composing. So what is how do you strike that balance? How much of what we hear is structured and composed and repeatable, and how much is intuitive and in the moment?
Well, the tunes are created through intuition in the moment, and then they're produced by Dan and Max into kind of tunes that then we learn how to replicate on the gigs. And then through the process of touring, then those tunes take a life of their own and broaden themselves into a narrative of a whole set. But it starts with an intuitive outburst of creativity.
Yeah, because I love the idea of no one's written anything before we hit the studio. So no one kind of goes, this is what we are going to play, and I have written this thing. It's more like we're given that red light switching on and the tape rolling in the studio. As say we record to tape, and it's like half an hour long. So it's like, what are you going to do in that half an hour? And I feel like because of our characters, that somehow brings out the best of us, who are like, this is the moment, let's go. And we're not overthinking it. We're bottling that energy, which is the first energy. When you first play a song, you talk to any songwriter, the first time they play it, they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Give it 6 months, they might be like, yeah, it's pretty good. So we actually capture, what you hear is the sound of us like unbelievably in love with this new piece of creation. So it's like, it's not going to work for every band, but it totally works for me, I think.
Yeah. So on the record, it is largely a continuous flow from one track to the next. So it clearly is an album, as a single kind of immersive listening experience. And in live performance, you sometimes string some of these pieces together as well. Maybe not in the same order. For example, you're going to do 2 pieces from the record for us now, right? The second of them is Summon the Fire, a title that suggests, Dan, what you were just talking about, that catching lightning in a bottle, summoning the fire thing. But before that, you want to do Birth of Creation, and I'll just wait and see how you get from one to the next.
So will we.
The band is The Comet Is Coming. They have a sold-out show tonight at Mercury Lounge, but they're doing a listening party, a free listening party tomorrow evening here in New York at the Club New Blue. And right now, performing live here in our studio, here's a medley of Birth of Creation and Summon the Fire from The Comet Is Coming. The Comet Is Coming, the London Trio live in our studio with Summon the Fire, which is the single from their new record called Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery. And before that, we heard Birth of Creation. The two played as a medley. Once again, King Shabaka on saxophone, Danalog on keyboards, and Betamax, newly rechristened Beta, behind our drum kit. And Dan, playing analog synthesizer, it didn't occur to me until I was watching you play Summon the Fire. All the that would normally be like a programmed thing with a digital, that's you. That's the wrist action constant over the course of that song.
Oh yeah, and on the record too, you know, it's like I kind of like bringing some kind of organic life to these kind of old, kind of ancient analog machines, you know. I think I'm playing them maybe in the way more like a guitar, you know, because I was always really into guitar when I was younger.
It's funny you mention that because it reminds me of, like, you know, the quick, all the downstrokes that the Ramones would use, where it's just
exactly.
like flying, you know, fingers, or in this case, picks on the strings.
I find it slightly dull and lifeless to me personally when you have a sequencer kind of triggering off your synths, going dun 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 dun. So even if it goes out of time, I actually think that's kind of better. And you can, move around all the faders and have a lot of fun on there as well.
But it didn't seem like it went out of time. So, I mean, you had that down pat. Very impressive. So, Shabaka, it seems like the Comet Is Coming, you know, has this kind of space theme, not too dissimilar from Sun Ra's music back in the, 50s and 60s. But it seems like imagery of space and of science fiction, that there are kind of extra musical concerns that have gone into the making of this band as well.
Yeah, we're trying to contextualize the music, you know, with the thought of us being literally in space. You know, in some ways you can get caught up on the fact that we have our microcosm down here and we're, you know, involved in all the makings of our societies without realizing that we are floating literally within a cosmos.
Right.
So I think conceptualizing, you know, where we are in the, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, puts an added level of, you know, intensity on your perspective, whatever that might be.
There's an old song by the psychedelic rock band Lothar and the Hand People called Starship of Stone, which is exactly about that, you know, we're on this kind of spaceship made of rock, hurtling through the universe.
You know, and the spaceship can malfunction if you treat it badly, you know, as
absolutely.
you'll be seeing with the planet.
Lothar, by the way, was their name for the theremin, which was the electronic instrument that they used. This was like a band back in the 60s. And check it out.
I think one thing that we think from the textbooks, science textbooks, is that we spiral round and round still in space. You know, we're just fixed in one position and everything's going round and round the sun. But actually, because the solar system as a whole is spinning around, we're actually moving forward through space. So the sun is moving forward and everything's kind of chasing behind it in a vortex. So in that sense, even though we feel like we're going around in circles, we're really propelling forward into the future. And I feel like that's why, there might be kind of extra musical concerns that we share with Sun Ra, but at the same time, it's kind of 2019. So it's kind of like, it has a slightly different flavor to it, I think, kind of slightly more something. I don't know, fill in the blank.
Well, you don't want to fill in all the blanks, do you? You got to leave something.
Some mystery.
Yeah, the deep mystery. You got to leave some for us. A final question, Max. What was it like to be playing South by Southwest and look out at the audience and see a first ever jazz mosh pit forming?
Oh yeah, that was wild. But I mean, we've seen it before. So
okay,
it was just business as usual, but
no big deal then.
Well, I mean, it's always a big deal when some big guy is pushing you and you're in a mosh pit. That is a big deal for those guys. To see that kind of reaction is great. That's you know, we talked before we came out to the US. We were like, I wonder if the US is ready for the jazz rave or whatever this is that we're doing. And yeah, to see it just popping off like that felt really great.
Yeah. Well, the album is great. It's called Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery. It is the latest from the Comet Is Coming. And guys, this has been really a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming in and playing for us today.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, man.
And catch them tomorrow night at New Blue, a free listening party. Tonight's concert at Mercury Lounge is sold out. The band is The Comet Is Coming. This is Soundcheck.